With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers devoted to addressing draft laws countering money laundering and financing terrorism. Prime Minister Nadir Harbawi has highlighted on behalf of the President of the Republic the responsibility placed on the shoulders of young people today in order to raise the stakes of development and progress to build a strong state. As the Israeli occupying forces have pursued the attacks on the Gaza Strip, the UN Coordination Office for Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, says that the food system has completely collapsed in the besieged territory. Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. I'm Miriam Bershi. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense, has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers. The meeting discusses two draft laws on the prevention and fight against money laundering and the financing of terrorism, the protection of natural persons in the processing of personal data, and presentations devoted to automotive industry projects in Algeria. Meanwhile, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received the CEO of the Italian energy giant, Eni, Claudio Descalzi. The meeting was attended by Bouhlem Bouhlem, Director of the Office of the President of the Republic, Rashid Hashishi, CEO of Sonatrach, and Rimini Amin, Acting Secretary General of the Ministry of Energy, Mines and Renewable Energies. The Directorate General of Communication at the Presidency of the Republic has extended its sincere condolences and expressed its deep sympathy to the family of Ahmed Bouhired, a war veteran and technician at the Algerian television who passed away at the age of 85. Earlier, the Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Mr. Brahim Boughali, and the Minister of Communication, Mr. Mohamed Mziane, have also extended their condolences. The war veteran Ahmed Bouhired was one of the pillars of Algerian radio and television. He answered the call of the country at the beginning of the revolution and continued his mission in the media battle. Entrusted by the President of the Republic, Prime Minister Nadir Harbawi has presided over the opening of the National Summit Youth and Political Participation here in Algiers, organized by the Higher Youth Council under the patronage of President Abdelmajid Tebboune. Speaking on behalf of the President of the Republic, Prime Minister Nadir Harbawi highlighted the responsibility placed on the shoulders of young people today in order to raise the stakes of development and progress and immortalize the deeds of the martyrs by building a strong state.
إن تزامن هذا اللقاء الهام.
The holding of this important meeting on a topic of such an extreme importance and coinciding with this historical anniversary calls for remembering the experience of the revolutionary generation of young people who decided to change the course of history and write an immortal liberation heroism that has become a source of inspiration for all oppressed peoples. At the same time, it highlights the weight of responsibility placed on the shoulders of young people today in order to boost development and progress and immortalize the deeds of our valiant martyrs by building a strong state, strong economy, and a solid and fortified society. This summit represents a golden opportunity to review the gains achieved during the past few years in order to enable young people to engage in political action and participate in decision-making and to highlight the obstacles and difficulties that hinder their integration and the building in participatory democracy, which constitutes the basic incubator and the optimal framework for the interaction of societal forces with government institutions.
He then called on all young people interested in public affairs to break the barrier of doubt and engage strongly in action.
أن أدعو كل الشباب المهتمين بالشأن العام
I call on all young people interested in public affairs to break the barrier of doubt and engage strongly in action, as this is the only way to overcome the constraints that may be imposed by some outdated practices and obsolete traditions, and to be an effective counterpart in the democratic path that our country has chosen with complete freedom and sovereignty, and to ensure effective participation in working out public policies. In this regard, I would like to emphasize in particular the importance of adopting innovative means of open communication free from bureaucracy with various institutions, given the ability of open platforms to bridge distances, impose transparency, and enhance the influence of the hesitant voice of the youth.
He also called for boosting more efforts to consolidate the achieved qualitative transformation in the relationship of youth with state institutions, especially elected councils.
إن المكاسب التي تم تحقيقها إلى غاية اليوم.
The gains achieved to date push us towards increasing efforts to consolidate this qualitative transformation in the relationship of youth with the state institutions, especially elected councils. Therefore, through focusing on political training and upbringing, which is considered a basic condition for preparing a generation capable of assuming responsibility, which must extend across all stages of education in various institutions and political training, I affirm in this context the state's determination to accompany its youth through training and supervision and providing spaces for expression and initiative, while renewing the importance of completing the preparation of the national plan for youth and to implement it within a comprehensive approach that allows addressing these concerns.
Organized one day after the celebration of the 63rd anniversary of independence and bringing together more than 3,000 young Algerians participating in political life from all over the country and abroad, the summit crowns an interactive process of dialogue and debate on the mechanisms and means of promoting the political participation of young people. The Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, has held a meeting in Singapore with the Singaporean Foreign Minister, Mr. Vivian Balakrishnan. During the meeting, the two men addressed Algerian-Singaporean relations and examined ways of promoting them through the partnership and cooperation opportunities offered by the two countries. The two parties held the successful partnership experiences in the field of port management and the processing industry, agreeing to expand the framework of bilateral cooperation to priority areas for both countries, such as industry across all sectors, agriculture, digitalization, startups, city management, education, and higher education. The two ministers also exchanged views and analysis on several international and regional issues of common concern, among them the developments in the Palestinian coast, the current situation in the Middle East, and the developments in the Sahel-Saharan region. Representing the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Secretary of State to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in charge of African Affairs, Mrs. Bakhta Selma Mansouri, took part in the official celebrations marking the 15th anniversary of the independence of the Republic of Cape Verde, which took place in Praia. On the occasion, the Secretary of State conveyed the wishes of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, to his Cape Verdean counterpart, Mr. José María Neves, stressing that Algeria is proud of its historic relations with Cape Verde based on solidarity and mutual support during the periods of liberation struggle, especially as the two countries celebrate the Independence Day on the same day, July 5th. In a speech delivered on the occasion, the Cape Verdean president praised Algeria's valuable support for his country's liberation process and held the fraternal relations between the two peoples. And the 13th session of the Steering Committee of the African Union Mechanism for Police Cooperation, AFRIPOL, has kicked off in Algiers. The details with Essia Bakar.
In his speech, the Director General of National Security, Ali Badawi, emphasized the need to take all the necessary measures and coordinate efforts to enhance the monitoring of social media. In light of the spread of cybercrime, he called for reform programs drying up the sources of crime and working to enhance technical capabilities and human resource development. Mr. Badawi emphasized the importance of supporting African cooperation mechanisms and creating effective mechanisms for joint training between the various security institutions on the continent, contributing to building integrated police capabilities capable of confronting current and future security challenges. The meeting comes within the framework of strengthening security cooperation between African countries and as a continuation of efforts to support police coordination across the African continent. The meeting comes within a regional and international context characterized by increasing security issues which require intensified joint action to address current challenges, notably the fight against terrorism, organized crime, and trafficking in all its forms. The meeting will make an assessment of the implementation of AFRIPOL strategies and a review of national experiences in exchanging police data. It will also explore ways to combat drugs and enhance cybersecurity by establishing a unified database to track cyber crimes, exchange expertise, and strengthen the technical capabilities of member states.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. As the Israeli occupying forces have pursued the attacks on the Gaza Strip, the UN Coordination Office for Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, says that the food system has completely collapsed in the besieged territory. It warned against further human losses on account of the blockade imposed by the Israeli occupying authorities on the enclave for nearly 2 years now. The UN agencies noted that the families in Gaza were putting their lives at risk to have some food, arguing that the rate of malnutrition had doubled at a time when milk for newborns is running out. Recently, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed dismay at the worsening of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and once again called for a permanent and immediate ceasefire. In the meantime, the Israeli occupation army pursued its pounding of their territory, killing 7 Palestinians and wounding over 70 others for the past 24 hours. The former advisor to the U.S. National Security, former diplomat John Bolton, has reiterated that he was convinced that the organization of a self-determination referendum in Western Sahara remains the only solution to the conflict. He told the Spanish daily El Independiente that he was surprised that 35 years after its adoption, the UN Secretary General or Security Council resolution setting up the UN mission for the organization of a self-determination referendum has not yet been implemented, although it is agreed on by all. The former US diplomat expressed regret at the non-implementation of the document, translating thus what he called the weakness of the UN. He advocated a return to international legality to settle the conflict while highlighting that the Sahrawis who are living in tents deserve to return home. In this respect, the former US official held Morocco responsible for the deadlock in the conflict settlement process and recalled that it had reconsidered the commitments it took in 1991 as part of the ceasefire agreement and the Houston Accords reached in 1997, as it cannot take the risk to lose the referendum. Meanwhile, the Polisario Front's representative to the Switzerland, Ubi Bouchaya Bashir, said that Morocco was using what he called the economic investment card to bypass the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination after failing to legitimize its occupation of Western Sahara through diplomacy. He was quoted by the news agency APS as saying that Morocco attempts to bring some countries to support its occupation of Western Sahara as a fait accompli. The Sahrawi official went on to say, caused companies to illegally invest in the occupied territory and to act as lobbies to put pressure on their government to recognize Morocco's alleged sovereignty over Western Sahara. The Polisario Front's representative stated that by involving companies in the plundering of Sahrawi people's resources, the Moroccan occupying authorities were seeking to reinforce the positions expressed by some powers by allowing their own companies to be illegally present in the territory and to exploit its resources. In this respect, the Sahrawi officials was precisely referring to the authorization granted by the Moroccan occupying authorities to the new made energy company for oil prospection of Western Sahara's coasts. In the US, search teams are looking for dozens of people still missing after flash floods in central Texas face the danger of more heavy rain and thunderstorms after a disaster that has killed at least 78 people, including 28 children. Search teams waded through mud-laden riverbanks and flew over the flood-stricken landscape on the fourth day of the search for survivors after Friday's flash floods. Back to national news, the annual Speba Festival has kicked off in the palm grove of the southern region of Jeannette in a unique atmosphere despite a relatively low turnout due to the intense heat. The ancestral festival, celebrated annually by the people of the region of Jeannette, is a sacred event that goes beyond the perpetration of a centuries-old ritual to promote the cultural heritage of Tassili Najjar and reaffirm the attachment to a legacy that reflects bravery and belonging to a community identity rooted in the history of the region. That's it for today's news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a special program on Speba. Stay tuned on Radio Algeria International.
The celebration of the Speba begins on the first day of Muharram, which means on the new year of the Hijri calendar. It continues until Ashura, the 10th of the same month. The Tuareg, or the Blue Men that live in Jeannette, an oasis city in Illizi province, southern Algeria, celebrate the Speba to express joy over the victory of Prophet Moses against the Pharaoh. To this end, each year and in an atmosphere of warfare feast, the tribes of the Qsor of Al-Mizan and Zelwaz commemorate the event through a ritual in which religion, tradition and art intermingle. In addition to those who believe that Speba is a ritual related to Ashura, others believe that Speba is about praising the historical figures, but also the old, young, and women of each tribe. However, residents of the Qsor say that the Speba simply allows local tribes to come together on Ashura each year to celebrate a peace pact made by their ancestors for millennia. This peace treaty between the two tribes signified the end of one of the longest fratricidal wars in the history of the Ajars tribes, a war unleashed over water. On Ashura Day, the inhabitants of the two tribes, Al-Mizan and Zelwaz, have kept this tradition. They go down to the valley to celebrate their sedentary lifestyle, which differentiates them from nomadic tribes. This Speba always begins with a prayer that sounds like a song, where the performers ask God Almighty to give them life until the next day, so that they go down to the valley each year to celebrate. Each tribe praises its people, the strength of its youth, the beauty of its women, and the courage of its elders while criticizing the other tribe. Some agree that this is a fair and artistic competition that shows the tribe's traditions, notably dancing, poetry, traditional dresses, songs, hairstyles, masks, and swords. Dances are performed on the captivating rhythm of the tambourine, while the representatives of the two tribes, in great splendor, display the sacred fabrics which recall their tribal origin and their unity against the enemy. The warriors of both camps are dressed in their colorful costumes, and women line up along the valley participating in the singing. They show their ceremonial weapons and gaze at each other, challenge each other, and provoke each other under the sounds of El Bendir, which is a wooden frame drum of North Africa, also played in Sufi ceremonies. Late in the afternoon, the wise men intervene to stop the war parades of the two tribes and give their opinion on the show of the tribes. However, the party continues till the evening, when several artists from the region and from other towns in Algeria hold the tradition party in the town center. Many tourists head to Janet every year to attend the Sbeiba ceremony, finding in it an opportunity to know about the traditions of these tribes, to get closer to Algerian traditional events in general, and to celebrate with them. Sbeiba and similar events tell about the people that celebrated and show the strong cultural link they have with their origins.
Tipaza is a town on the coast of Algeria. Tipaza was founded by the Phoenicians. It was made a Roman military colony by the Emperor Claudius and afterwards became a municipium. The Roman city was built on 3 small hills which overlooked the sea. Of the houses, most of which stood on the central hill, no traces remain, but there are ruins of 3 churches. The Great Basilica and the Basilica Alexander on the western hill, and the Basilica of Saint Salsa on the eastern hill, 2 cemeteries, the baths, theater, amphitheater, and nympheum. The line of the ramparts can be distinctly traced, and at the foot of the eastern hill, the remains of the ancient harbor. The basilicas are surrounded by cemeteries, which are full of coffins, all of stone and covered with mosaics. The basilica Basilica of Saint Salsa, which has been excavated by Stefan Gsell, consists of a nave and 2 aisles, and still contains a mosaic. The Great Basilica served for centuries as a quarry, but it's still possible to make out the plan of the building, which was divided into 7 aisles. In 484, the Vandal king Huneric sent an Arian bishop to Tipaza, whereupon a large number of the inhabitants fled to Spain, while many of the remainder were cruelly persecuted. After this time, the city disappears from history, and whether or not its ruin was caused by the Arabs, they seem to have made no settlement there. Tipaza is also known for Ishinwian Group. Ishinwian was created in 1979 in Tipaza. The stage name refers to their native region of Mount Shenhua in Tipaza. At the beginning, the band was composed of 5 musicians, then 3 of them left because of some circumstances. They began their career by singing at university campuses and theaters. In 1979, Ishinwian made their breakthrough when Sharif Khaddam encouraged them to record for the radio. 1 year later, they